We started this hour and change talking about Border Patrol and their aggression. And yeah, they are one hand of this two-pronged problem that's happening inside of the border in places like Missouri. So let's go to this video.
I know he can't do that. He stick the dog on him. God damn. Don't let the dog bite him.
I'm recording it.
That's like a dog. Lord have mercy. That's sad.
You heard?
Oh my God. Are you serious?
So that happened in Missouri, and it is footage of 3 police officers allowing a dog to bite and to drag to the ground a man who was being put under arrest, who police say was somehow resisting. Now, you guys can rewind that, watch it as many times as you need to see where the resistance took place. I honestly have seen it a lot and cannot find where he is resisting arrest. So that was the Woodson Terrace Police Department, who said they were called on September 20th after reports of a man trespassing at a business in the Woodson Terrace. They alleged that the man was refusing to leave and threatening to kill the responding officers and claimed that he was a sovereign citizen. They said that they warned the man, who they thought was on drugs, that if he did not comply, they would use a dog. Okay, let's break that apart. So we've got trespassing. Is that a violent crime? No. Was he armed? No. Threatening to kill verbally? They thought he was on drugs? Okay, was that not confirmed? This sounds like a lot of hearsay from cops who allowed their dog to maul someone who was supposed to be put under arrest, if even that. Now, okay, so for breaking that down for y'all, if you guys didn't watch the video, or just to explain what happened in the video, the 2 officers are seen arresting the man while he's leaning over the hood of his car. Another officer stands in front of the car with a barking dog. The man appears not to be resisting arrest, but the canine is still released on him as the other 2 cops step away. The dog continues barking as it nips at the ankles of the man, who shouts and grabs his legs. The man can be heard yelling help, but the 3 officers stand by and let the dog continue to attack him. The 2 officers then push the man on the ground, and the dog starts pulling and yanking at his leg. Eventually, the 3rd cop pulls the dog away, only to release him again on the suspect. The dog bites and drags the man to the ground. This is again all while the police officers are there standing by watching. So that's twice that he was sicked on this man. Reactions, Caroline, to this footage?
The footage is, it's absolutely heartbreaking and devastating. And the statement from the police, who, let's remind ourselves, lie all the time. They are under no obligation actually to tell the truth in these instances. The statement itself shows that they are the problem. That the policy, this is basically like why I don't believe there can be reform from within, because if they are making the policies, and in their words, which again, they're allowed to make up whatever story they want, by their own definition of the policies that they have, they can do things like this. So this is why the only answer is to defund the police and take money away from these overbloated departments. Because, all last year we learned that in city budgets, the police budget constantly is getting raised at the expense of other social programs. And what this does is they say, oh, we need money for training, for diversity, bias, implicit training. And as we can see in videos like this again and again and again, the problem is the institution. And I saw earlier today, which was just so heartbreaking and frustrating, that it seems as if the reform measures and laws that are being pushed in Congress have basically stalled, and it looks like they're not going to go any further. And that is just embarrassing. The biggest mass movement probably in the history of this country of people during a pandemic was to defund these departments across the country because everyone knows that they have far too much money, far too many resources. And it just shows a lack of complete willpower and honestly respect from Democrats, moderate Republicans in Congress, because people have been fighting. People with their loved ones who have been murdered by police have been on the front lines. And finally, there is also public agreement in that. And the fact that these bills in Congress have just sort of quietly died is just more videos like this, more and more and more. And what is it gonna take at this point? I really don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the political will and the fact that I've never seen more of a disconnect from the popular will, right? We always talk about, things like Medicare for all, acting on climate change, everybody likes that. Well, also things like a severe, if not defunding of the police, reform or defunding of the police, but we can't even get the most basic reforms passed. You saw the popular will on the streets. And so I've never seen a more disconnect between the politicians that are supposed to represent us and the people who have took to the streets, like you said, in the middle of a pandemic to actually voice their opposition to these acts of cruelty. And look, this is one act that I think really does demonstrate the amount of cruelty, sicking an animal, a dog, to bite, to drag to the ground a unarmed man who was not resisting arrest, who was already cornered by 3 police officers. I think that's the definition of cruelty. And it's not just me saying that. I wanna turn to two folks weighing in on this incident. The editorial board of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch writes, this incident bears all the hallmarks of cops deciding to issue their personal form of street justice, inflicting pain and punishment on the spot instead of waiting for the courts to do their job. It's almost like they enjoy it. It's almost like they like letting go of the dog, even though this suspect was already in custody, was already being detained. It's almost like, let's just let go of the dog one more time and see what happens. Yeah, that's great. For trespassing, I wanna, obviously a lot of people, I'm thinking about the dog in this case, the idea that you could train an animal to do something like that. There's an expert, Michael Gould, who specializes in all of these police tactics that are used using canines. And he says the fact of the matter is it's a human reflex to resist a canine coming at you. You can't have an 80-pound dog puncturing your skin and be compliant. It's virtually impossible. Any final thoughts, Caroline, before we wrap?
Just quickly, we gotta get the dogs out of there. This is like, liberate the dogs. It's same with horse cops. Like, get these animals out. It really is sad that these animals are trained to do a specific job for whatever type of criminal, but now they're just being let loose. And you have to wonder if it's just police trying to abdicate their own responsibility, putting it onto these animals that you have trained. I mean, what is the dog whisperer? He always says there's no bad dogs, only bad owners. He doesn't say it like that, but it's basically like, however a dog acts is directly a reflection of the owner. Of course, not in the case of like certain rescues and stuff like that, but a trained bred dog.
100%. And as we used to yell at the NYPD in my activism days, get those animals off those horses.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.